What I have found is that for most of us, we do not spend some time thinking. So at the end of this, you know what I'm going to ask you to do? You know what's coming next, right? You are going to get pen and paper and you're going to write the vision out. You are everything starts small. Nothing in this life, nothing that is big today started big. It all started small. You have to be prepared to work hard. That means you can't give up. That means even when you feel like giving up, even when you others don't support you, even when people who said they were going to help you stop helping you because they're afraid that you will become more successful than they are. Even when that is the case, you still can't give up on yourself. You have to persevere in spite of. So what came out of Bill? I found that he's a great thinker. I found that he's a hard worker. He's dedicated and committed. These are characteristics that I think we all should embody and employ. These are characteristics that if we follow them, we can't lose. Say lose, can't lose. These are the kinds of things that if we follow them, we cannot lose. I found I sat there and mind you, he's been a fascinating character most of my life, right? And I have watched him progress through Microsoft and I've admired his success. But this was the first time I've read stories about him because it's fascinating. But this was the first time that I said, but wait a minute, I've always wondered, how did he come up with this idea? There were some similarities. We both read a lot. That was one. We both commit to our hard working. He works harder than I did. He spent all day, all night. I'm kind of like a mother, so I have to cook and do all that kind of stuff, right? And wife. There was at one point in my journey when I was a wife and a mother at the same time, and I had to do that. But he was dedicated. Even when he failed, he would just start right over again. If he wrote a code and it didn't work, he'd start right over. He'd figure out what happened and start right over. But he didn't stop. He persevered. And he worked hard. He worked night and day to build Microsoft. Microsoft is where it is today because somebody believed in it so much and believed in the power of that idea that they gave their life and worked night and day to build it. Of course, it was attacked by jealous people, of course, because people just sat back and said, oh, well, he's too big, he's monopolizing and so on. And you're like, well, if you have the best product out there, you are going to be a monopoly. Look at Apple and Google phones. Do you see anybody else coming up making phones? No, because those two are the best, right? Right. Right? But do you see what I mean? He did not quit. He did not give up. And he stayed in the game. How many of us do that? Not many. For most of us, we quit halfway. Man, it's too hard. Let me stop. I'm just gonna go back to my little cubicle and my little plant job and just stand right here. For most of us, what we did was we stayed in the game, right? And we did what we did was we stayed in the game and kept going. I remember days I would stay up and I would go to work. I had 2 children in 2 different school districts, and I would go to work and drive around and go from one place to the other. And then I would pick them up, 2 children in 2 different school districts, drop them off, then went back to work, then come home and work for myself. That's what my daughter used to call it. She says, now is the time when mommy works for herself. I'd spend up 6 to 8 hours staying up from 6 o'clock in the evening until 1 o'clock in the morning. And I would stay up to learn how to be a better writer, how to broadcast and ways. And those were the early days of the internet. How do I market myself? I spent hours going through different pages, web pages, figuring it out. Nothing comes easy, my friends. Nothing comes easy. There is a price to pay. And the price is high, but it's worth it in the end. So if you find yourself struggling, and if you find that you have a dream and you are dedicated to your craft and you believe in the power of your idea. You believe that your idea is life-changing for you and the people around you, and it will change people's lives. It is going to require something out of you. Along the way, you are going to lose friends. You are going to perhaps lose even family members and partners, because everyone is not going to understand what drives you. As Bill said, the one person he wants to thank is his wife. She did not leave. She stayed with him because she understood. And he said part of the success was he chose someone who was similar to him. She liked science, she liked math, so when he was talking, she could relate, and she understood how his mind worked. It also helped, as far as I'm concerned, that he was, he stayed in the game with her. He didn't shut her out, even though he worked long hours and was away from home for long periods. And sometimes, as a woman, you don't know really what's going on. You think that he's out because he's with someone else, and he probably has someone else with him. But he hastened to reassure her, and that's the key. He hastened to reassure her that we're in this thing together. I say to you, find the best partner. If you have a partner who is staying with you through thick and thin, you commit to that person. You let them know that they're important to you. Some of us don't have that luxury, and you find people and they don't want to commit, and they don't want to stay with you. They're not committed to the idea. Even if they don't believe in the idea, even if they're not sure, they're like, well, I trust you and I'm here for you. Sometimes that's all that needs to be said. I trust you and I'm here for you. Sometimes you go to your partner and you hash out an idea, you discuss an idea, you ratify it, you talk about it and listen to it, and you're like, okay, well, I see where this is going. But sometimes you have a partner who just does not understand you at all and tells you to shut up. There's another couple whom I admire. What's his name? Jakes, the bishop. Bishop Jakes, I can't remember his first name. Bishop Jakes, do we even know his first name, or we just call him Bishop Jakes? I don't even know. Bishop Jakes and his wife, Sarita, I think. He used to tell stories in the early days of how they came up. And he used to say that his wife understood what drove him, and she stayed home. And it was his job to go out and find the money. And she didn't leave. She washed even his jackets in the washing machine because they couldn't afford to take them to the cleaners. And she stayed because he committed to her. If you find a partner who is supportive, commit to that person. Because here's the thing. You can't afford to be distracted by the fact that you have to focus more on what this person needs when you really need the time to think. So you need to find a partner who is on equal footing with you, who understands you, so that you can commit to them, so you can spend your time thinking, because thinking is where you win. You're going to outlast the competition, and you're going to surpass the competition because you think and anticipate while they're sleeping, while they're fighting with their spouses, while they're fighting with their board, while they're fighting with this. Think on these things. The second thing you need to do is to have a plan of implementation. You have to start somewhere. And most of us say, yeah, you got to start somewhere. But where are you starting? Sometimes I have found it's not where you start and how you start. It's how you finish. Dr. Ben Carson is a renowned neurosurgeon today. But he started in the hood in Detroit. If that were to predict where he would end up in a hood somewhere. But instead, he's now one of America's renowned neurologists. Interesting, isn't it? It's not about where you start. What matters is how you finish. Microsoft started in Bill Gates' mother's garage, in his parents' garage. His mother believed in him, and after a year of Harvard, he dropped out, and his mother believed. And she supported him. She gave him the funding, the seed money to start, because she believed. Look where Microsoft is today. It's not about where you start. What matters is how you finish. Finish well. Dedicate yourself to your craft. You have to work at it. And listen to me very carefully. There are things to learn along the way. Bill Gates didn't become Bill Gates overnight. He had to learn about management. and business, things he never knew about before. He knew about coding, he knew about computers, but he had to learn management and business. And there's a key component between the two. What is that? I bet you can guess it. People. Now, that might have been a walk, that was not a walk in the park for him. He had to learn, right? Because creative people tend to be very brusque, and sometimes we can be very, right? But he had to learn to manage that. He had to learn how to deal with different people on different levels. And I say to you today, are you learning to manage? Are you learning to figure out what you need to figure out? Because between the start and the finish, there's a whole lot of learning left there to do. There's a whole lot of learning for you to figure out. We only have a few minutes left, right? And I just want to know, at what point do you think you will win? Because inside of his mind is a complex series of thoughts. But when you look at it, he gets all his thoughts and he kind of slides them into the right file. That's kind of like how our minds are designed to work. He just works his according to the design. Is your mind working according to the design? Have you allowed situations and circumstances and substances to interrupt the flow of your mind? Your mind is your computer. That's what powers you up. That's what files everything away. That's what finds solutions to the issues that you face. But your mind is crowded by trauma from stuff that happened in our childhood that we never got treated for. Our minds become affected by substances. We smoke, we drink, we take drugs. Ruin the best thing about you, your mind. So many people started taking drugs from way too early, started smoking way too early, start taking drugs way too early, right? Start drinking way too early. You got to be careful when you find yourself start needing a drink by the end of the day to power you down or to calm you down. You got to be careful because that's leading somewhere. That means a substance has taken you over and is now in control and is telling you how to chill, how to relax, how to do stuff. And people excuse it all away. You know, I have to take my little wine because it helps me to stay calm. It helps me to power down. It's my little treat for myself. It's my own little form of self-care. You're better off doing some go do some retail therapy. It's only going to hurt your bank account, but it's definitely not going to hurt your body, right? So feed your temple, right? And watch what you do, right? I kid you not. It's a fascinating documentary. I suggest you go and look it up. Inside the Mind of Bill Gates. It's available on Netflix. Go look it up and watch it. It has some interesting ideas about the implementation of new energy, some creative ideas. I thought they kind of hit the nail on the head when it comes to nuclear energy and using some uranium that is sitting in a town in Kentucky somewhere that could be rehabilitated and revitalized to be used as a form of energy for the next 150 years. Are you kidding me? So we could get rid of coal, and coal kills 800,000 people a year? Man, I would run to that, right? Then he gave us some solutions why the Japanese nuclear crisis happened. It was because the tsunami created a tidal wave, and the water went over the wall of the nuclear reactor, and the generators were on the ground floor. So the water went into the generators and it built the pressure up, and boom. And people thought the nuclear reactor exploded because the nuclear reactor was malfunctioning. No. Do you see what I mean? So on this and other stuff. So what I'd like you to do is to think on these things. Inside the minds of Bill Gates, think for your own processes. Think about what you need to do. Plan it out. Execute it. Have a plan of implementation, a plan of execution, and a plan of sustaining it, right? Make sure you do that and think about these things. And for more information on our show, go to HarrietKammock.com. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Join us again on this, your favorite podcast station, as we continue to explore matters that are simply down to earth. Be blessed, everybody. Thanks so much.